welcome to the Wednesday Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by the man who taught Radamel Falcao everything he knows about finishing and Gigi Buffon everything he knows about goalkeeping. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Both of those are true. In fact, I actually did do that, and that's why I am where I am today. sitting in my house in Richmond, Virginia, talking about the Champions League. Exactly.
So once again, we are not in studio.
Ew.
We are. I think yesterday I said we're 3 miles apart. It's actually more like 5 miles, isn't it? I thought about it.
Have you mapped it out, or are you still just speculating? All right.
It's 3 miles from my house to the office, but then your house is like another 2 miles the other way, right? Another 2 miles east.
Is this what you do in your off time? You just Google how far apart we are at any given moment?
Yep.
When I had a game at one facility and you had a practice at the other last night, did you also map that just to know, like, take solace and, like, I'm only 5 miles away from him?
Solace was not the word. All right, Taylor.
To abide by the restraining order? That was it?
We're here to talk Champions League today.
Yeah.
Monaco beat Dortmund 3-1.
They sure did.
And Juventus beat Barcelona 0-0.
Yeah, and it was kind of a sad day, I think, if you're an American fan, just because I think we're all excited to see if Christian Pulisic could go farther than, any other American? And I know that there's some speculation about other players who've done other things, but I'm saying any other American playing for that team has made it.
Yeah, and I was putting him into a little category against Keylor Navas this season as well, to be the deepest CONCACAF player.
Yeah, there's not many remaining anymore, are there? Because I think as of the last round, all Mexican players have been eliminated from the Champions League. Now, Obviously, all Americans. So we have, Costa Rica left?
It's just Keylor. It's just Keylor representing CONCACAF.
Hang in, Keylor. Hang in.
All right, so Pulisic did not start for Dortmund away to Monaco. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say, I was a little surprised because he came off the bench in that first game and really did turn things around, right? He made a real difference for Dortmund in the first game against Monaco. And he just seemed like he had the assist at the weekend. And it seems to me Pulisic would have been the perfect balance between attack and defense that Dortmund needed to sort of overturn a 3-2 deficit without conceding too many goals.
Yeah.
Or am I just being biased?
No, I don't think you are. I really don't. I think maybe last time I was even kind of loath to give him too much credit because I didn't want it to just be like Pulisic American fanboying. And we actually had some people say, like, no, here are statistics. They do better when he's on the field. And so, and kind of knowing the impact he had in that last game, I really did expect him to start today, and I felt like it was a very obvious mistake not to. Same goes for Dembele, although I don't think Ousmane Dembele had a very good game, but it did seem like Thomas Tuchel maybe overthought this one a little bit.
So instead, starting at what I'm going to call it right mid / right wing back, right? Yep. 'Cause it was a back three. Eric Durm is where you might normally expect Pulisic to be. And it was Eric Durm that got sort of beaten after, 2 minutes of the game by Mendy, who drove inside, drove past him, got a shot at Berkey, and then Mbappe is there to score the rebound.
Indeed. Now, to be fair, Eric Durm then kind of figured it all out, had a really strong game, and was subbed out in the 27th minute.
I don't think that was entirely like a judgment on Durm's performance. That was more about the tactical shift, right? Because they went to a back four at that point.
Yeah.
They went to sort of a back four with wing backs. I will say this, I think we've never talked about this before, Taylor. I was once subbed out of a high school game after 20 minutes because we were 2-0 down in a really important game, and it genuinely was all my fault. It was the worst I've ever played. The team pulled it back and tied 2-2, and I had to be linesman, and that was sort of the not the punishment. It was more like I was the only other person there, so I had to be linesman.
First of all, it could have been worse. You could have been ball boy. That would have been more embarrassing. Second, wait, hold on. How is it all your fault? Like, did you score 2 own goals? Did you just fail to mark? I want to know details. I've never heard this story.
I played centre midfield and just was like mishitting all my passes. Yeah, it wasn't tracking people correctly, and we were 2-0 down real fast.
I see.
And the coach literally pointed at me like, "Your fault. We're getting someone else."
Wow, that's good coaching. Oh man, yeah. And so I don't necessarily think that it was just sort of Durm was having a horrible game and had to be pulled. I think it was probably a little bit tactical and maybe a little bit of a weak game, because I will say maybe a couple minutes before he comes out, again, I was watching on the Fox Soccer To Go app, so no time, so it's kind of difficult to track these things specifically. But he had the one where I think it came off of a corner and it kind of falls to him and he tries to clear it out of bounds. Do you remember this one? Like, he looks like he's trying to basically put it over the goal, and he's conceding a corner kick. So I think it's a cross. He's conceding a corner. But he mishits it. He shins the ball, and it still goes out of bounds, but he definitely looks around like, ooh, I did not mean to do that. And it does make me wonder if there was just sort of Thomas Tuchel was on the sideline like, okay, I've got to pull somebody. I know they're all doing it. And then he just slices it off of his shin, and Tuchel was like, okay, Durm is making way.
Would you agree with me that he's somewhat to blame for that opening goal after 3 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just because I think it is still maybe Dortmund kind of getting used to it, like fitting in. What's the word I'm looking for here? Like just getting acclimated to starting a Champions League game away, maybe, and so they're not quite as like lively and energetic as you might have expected. And so
it's weird, right? Going to Monaco is weird because that stadium is not big and not full.
Right. Yeah,
and it's a really odd atmosphere, and you're surrounded by like beautiful ocean. Is it an ocean or a bay? I'm not sure. Like big yachts and casinos, and then this weird football stadium where not enough people go watch football.
It's the Mediterranean, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's a beautiful sea. I'll give you that. But yeah, so I just think it was sort of maybe it was a combination of the weird environment and also just knowing that they had to get a result. That it's always going to make you, when you're starting from a perspective of we have to get at least 2, and then very quickly we have to get at least 3. It probably makes you just a little bit more inclined to get forward and feel a little bit more urgency. And I felt like Dortmund had that urgency in terms of we got to get the ball forward, we got to try to make something happen, and less so in terms of hey, we should probably mark people and not let them dribble 60 yards without really getting a body to them.
It's worth noting that this is only a week and a day since the bus attack.
Yeah.
So it's not as if they've had months to recover from this.
No,
I know Tuchel beforehand said, that's out of our minds and we're sort of focused on this, but that can only be true to a certain extent, right? So I'm very much prepared to give all the Dortmund players and staff like a lot of leeway in terms of where their heads were at for this game.
I mean, yeah, when you have Mark Bartra was there on the bench. I mean, and I'm assuming he had a cast on or some sort of bandage wrapped around his arm. So I think when you have a physical reminder of the terrorist attack that took place, it's going to be kind of hard to really shake that off right away.
Yeah, so I think it's worth just getting that out there, right, before people accuse us of being too harsh on Dortmund. But all we can do, as with the first leg, really, all we can do is watch the game and let people know what we saw and what we thought. And what I saw is a lot of players on that first goal not really thinking Mendy was ever going to shoot. Everybody sort of made sure that the pass out wide to Lamar was not on by blocking off his pass to the wing.
Yep.
So Mendy said, who, by the way, was suspended first leg, right? So this is the first time those Dortmund players have faced Mendy. Mendy said, okay, I'm going to go straight to goal and I'm going to shoot real hard at Berkey and see what he does.
I think he was injured. It was Bakayoko, I think, was suspended for the first
leg.
Oh,
sorry. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, even so, he wasn't there, so I take your point.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right that they were just kind of expecting him to pass it off. Like, come on. We know what you're going to do because we're Dortmund. We pass the ball around a whole bunch and try to find open opportunities, so we would never dream of shooting from distance. Yeah.
Dortmund would definitely have played it out wide.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think everyone is surprised by that, including Berkey, who I think I'm not sure if he's trying to parry it or if he's trying to like punch it straight up in the air or maybe even catch it. I'm not even sure if he knows what he's doing, but instead he just kind of spills it directly to Kylian Mbappe, who we know is a little bit predatory and a little bit lethal in front of goal, and once again he scores.
It really was. I'm not sure he gets enough credit for it. It was a really good sort of reaction finish, right?
Yeah.
To just sort of be aware of where that ball's going and then side foot it low past Berkey, I think is a really good finish and good reaction time.
That is an incredibly easy goal to miss. Like, and I'm saying not in terms of like it was like an incredible degree of difficulty, but just opening minutes of a game where you're playing at home. You're still a teenager. It's that moment of like, oh boy, here's my chance. But it's also so easy to overthink that, and just to have that sort of like brain switch off. No, I know how to finish. I'm going to finish calmly. It speaks to how good he is and how much money he's going to cost somebody in the very near future.
Any idea where you think he'll go?
I saw a lot of jokes, or not even jokes, but just speculation of 100 million euros plus insert random Real Madrid player here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could maybe see that. But Real Madrid's supposed to be going after Aubameyang, but I wonder if they'll be watching this and thinking, maybe we don't have to go. Maybe we don't have to go Aubameyang.
I mean, James came from Monaco to Real Madrid. Maybe they package him as part of a deal to send him back to Monaco.
Okay, yes, so there's a pipeline that goes back and forth.
Yeah, why not?
Why did the Dortmund defense freeze when Mendy shot? Because I remember when I was watching the replay of Mbappe's finish, Socrates and Ginter and Piszczek are still sort of standing frozen as if they've been rooted to the spot.
I mean, I think it is maybe just an element of they're trying not to concede anything on the counter because I'm assuming that that's what they are prepared for, right? You're going to throw numbers forward. It's going to leave you open and a little bit vulnerable at the back. So I think they're all trying to get into the right position to kind of block off passing options, to make sure no one gets in behind, to make sure there's no obvious one-on-one opportunities. But in so doing, they're not stepping, they're not putting pressure on the way they might have otherwise, and that's why you have Mendy shooting from distance and shooting without much hassle, which is why I think he's able to pull off that rip that is still on frame.
I'm asking more about Mbappe has the reaction time to be on that ball, and he's like behind the Dortmund defense when he gets onto the rebound. Yeah. It's as if they all just gave up after the Mendy shot. Not gave up, but stopped. As if they were in the face-off prison and the boots activated.
I think first of all, nicely done. Second of all, I think it's because in those situations, it almost feels a little bit like it's always going to go to the attacker. Because when you're the defender, you're having to react to what another person is doing. So if a person is suddenly ripping a shot from distance, you're going to turn and watch that shot. If you're a striker, I think you're maybe a little more naturally inclined to continue moving towards the goal just in case. I mean, you're taught from an early age, frame the goal, follow up. If that ball spills, you better be there. Otherwise, you're going to get yelled at by your coach and maybe subbed off and forced to be a linesman or a ball boy. So maybe that's what it's all about, is Mbappe just knows that shot's going through. I better be there just in case. And in this case, just in case is what happened.
You know who else was there and ready just in case?
Who's that?
Radamel Falcao.
Yeah.
I watched the replay. Falcao's there just in case it goes the other side. I think he's doing like a mirror image of the same finish if he gets the chance. And he gets his head to a cross in the 17th minute for the second goal. This one, easily the goal of the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially because it starts, 20 yards from Monaco's own goal. It's basically, it's Bakayoko being huge. I think he wins the ball off Kagawa, or at the very least wins a 50-50 chance off of Kagawa.
It's Kagawa. He gets a little help from his right back, but it's mostly Bakayoko. Yeah. And then he smoothly comes away with the ball is the important part.
And then plays it to Falcao, who himself is about 25 yards from his own goal. So it's Falcao essentially helping start the move and then very much helping finish the move, because he plays it to Lamar? Yeah, Lamar, and then Lamar goes well down the field, a couple more passes, and then it's that chip ball in. Falcao puts it home.
Oh, Taylor, I knew we'd be doing this, so I wrote down the order of how it all happened. So after Falcao does that one-time layoff to Lamar, it's Lamar drives forward, right?
Can I take guesses? I have not written it down, but can I guess?
Okay, so Lamar drives forward, and eventually he looks up and plays it out wide to...
Mendy?
To Mendy, yes. Mendy looks up, and instead of crossing high, plays it in short to the feet of...
Mbappe.
And Mbappe drops it back immediately to...
Lamar.
And Lamar crosses it to the head of...
Oh, Radamel Falcao.
There you go. And it's 2-0. It's 2-0 to Monaco. I think we already talked about this off air because we were both excited about it. But you said it first, so I want to give you the credit for saying it on the show. Falcao does something very clever to lose Ginter.
Yeah, so when that ball, as you said, instead of crossing it in, the ball goes to the feet of Mbappe. And I think Falcao starts his run as though that ball is going to come in. I think the Dortmund defense does the same thing. They're ready for that cross to come. When it doesn't come, Falcao then checks away, as he should, to open up space. And it's, I think, Ginter who's tracking him. And Ginter just relaxes a little bit at that point. You can kind of see it, that he goes from being tense and like really aware to, oh, okay, he's checked away. I don't need to worry about it. And in that half second, that's when that ball drops back to Lamar. And it's Falcao then just immediately goes from 0 to 100, cuts across Ginter. And Ginter, because he's relaxed a little bit, is slow to react because he's bit on that check away. When Falcao checks too, he's not ready. So he's out of position. So it's a goal.
I'm going to say that play, that whole move is in a sort of Monaco playbook. Yeah, I mean, I know like soccer teams don't do the NFL style, here's all our plays in one book, but they do practice certain sort of sequences, right? And I'll bet there's a sequence of in short to Mbappe drops it, Lamar crosses it, and Falcao does this run, this move, this check away, check two at the far post.
Yeah, but I mean, and I know there are many people out there who have higher coaching badges or coaching licenses than I do. So, I'm not trying to say like this is exactly how things work. But for people who don't know, you don't have those drawn up plays the way you do in, say, American football. But you do practice specific moves. You will, say you're trying to practice. Right? Yeah, patterns of play, exactly. And so I think you're absolutely right that there has definitely been a drill done by Monaco multiple times where it is, win the ball in the middle, play it out wide, drive forward, play it out wide again, come across. Like there's definitely that, like how to move and show and check to help out your teammates. That has definitely been practiced, like with specifically this play in mind.
So then, okay, I guess we're doing this kind of chronologically. Then Thomas Tuchel is starting to think, okay, this clearly isn't working.
Yeah.
And this is when I think he starts thinking about bringing Derm off and changing the shape, because it's 10 minutes after the Falcao goal is when he makes the substitution.
Yep, and it's Dembele comes on, and then they basically go, to a back four, essentially?
They do a back four with wing backs, which is interesting. It is a more attacking move, and it does kind of result in a goal in the second half, right? And then it's Dembele gets down the wing, cuts it back for Royce to score. I don't want to overanalyze that goal, but I do want to get to the idea of even though Dortmund changed the shape and Thomas Tuchel moved a lot of pieces around, right? Like Rafael Guerreiro was left wing back, then he was left back, then he was centre mid, then he was subbed out. There never really seemed to be a difference in approach for Dortmund.
Yeah.
Different shape, same system, same approach all the time.
Yeah, what I felt, and correct me if you disagree, is essentially that when they started, they're in sort of that 3-4-2-1, but I felt like very often it was almost like a 3-2-4-1, and it felt like they were basically trying to keep two defensive midfielders, have that back three, then you can commit at the very least 5 players consistently forward, and it's theoretically supposed to allow you to get numbers in there, but also prevent counterattacking goals. Obviously, it did not do that since they conceded 2 counterattacking goals inside the first 30 minutes. So then I think they switched to that 4-2-3-1 with the same idea, essentially, that you have a back four who can focus on defending. You have one more player back there in a kind of more stable position. Now you can still send numbers forward. And that works.
But they really do. The part I disagree with is I'm not sure the back four was that stable because they really sent the fullbacks forward almost like still wing backs. Do you know what I mean? It was almost a more attacking gamble.
Yeah, no, see, that's what I mean. Sorry, I said that poorly. Yeah, that's what I mean, I guess, by more stable is just that seems to have been what they were experimenting with in the past couple of weeks, was playing a back four as opposed to a back three. So it felt like it was maybe this idea of like, okay, we'll just get these 4 back here. Yes, we're still going to send them forward, but at least we've kind of got like a more protective shape. I just think in the end, it was meant as a way to sort of either pin Monaco back further so that counterattacking was that much more difficult, or prevent counterattacks. But I think they ended up having the exact same problem, was that you had gaps between defense and attack. You didn't really have people in positions where they had a lot of support, and so you kind of consistently had Dortmund getting the ball and either not really knowing what to do with it or getting dispossessed easily and having Monaco come right back at them.
And this is my complaint with Thomas Tuchel's Dortmund, maybe for the whole season. Because I haven't watched every single game. I've watched a lot of them, like principally because we've gone back and watched the Pulisic games, right? When it works and when it's, like the short passing and moving and working it wide and then you either get down the wing and either cross it in low or you cut it back, but you work your way into the box slowly but surely. Yeah. Is basically what Dortmund do, right? When it works, it's really beautiful to watch because there's some very skillful, very exciting players doing it. When it doesn't work, it doesn't matter how many pieces you move around, like whether it's a back four or a back three or whatever, it's still just the same thing over and over and over again. And if a team has figured out a way to withstand that, like Monaco did, and I would say Monaco withstood it with a sort of 4-4-2 empty bucket type system with 2 defensive midfielders that just made, and really good fullbacks that make it really hard to penetrate.
Yep.
Borussia Dortmund needs a plan B that's not just pass, and eventually open them up.
I agree, because I think in the first 15 minutes, I think Dortmund had one play where they were able to sort of pull a couple of Monaco players out of position that they did then get a through ball, and it did result in a shot, I think, that ended in a corner kick. But after that, Monaco did a really good job of staying narrow and staying compact. So you kind of always had 8 players in the center of the pitch, not very far from goal. And it felt like Dortmund didn't make any adjustments to try to deal with that, essentially. So you could use the channels, we're just going to cross the ball in, we're going to put big men up top, we're going to try to get some headed goals. Or you can try to pull people out of position a little bit more. It just felt like, yeah, you're right, that it was just more like pass, put our foot on the ball, pass some more, and it just never really felt like it was leading to any sort of consistent counterattacking or attacking threat.
And here's the thing, if you're Thomas Tuchel and you've got Dortmund, you probably do need a couple of different ideas because Pep Guardiola is the same, right? He says, this is how we play, and I've won loads of titles doing it, so this is how we're going to play. But he's been doing it with Barcelona, with Bayern Munich, and with Man City that has loads of money to keep improving it. So when you have those resources and can have the very best players, you can have one style and maybe keep doing it until it works and you're the best in the world at it. Yeah. When you're Borussia Dortmund, you're obviously like an almost the very best team in the world, but you're always not the very best team in the world. So you're going to come up against Bayern Munich on the regular, and you're going to come up against teams in the Champions League where you can't just expect to have the ball the whole time and work openings. You're going to need something else because you can't force your style of play onto a game and expect to win it. Like imagine a Dortmund counter-attacking team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they obviously have the personnel. Yeah.
If they just hit on the counter like Monaco did, and instead of like Mbappe, you've got Dembele or Aubameyang doing that kind of break at pace kind of job, that could be really effective.
Yeah, and to that I would say this, like it's a strange complaint to say that they didn't change it up enough, but at the same time, I think part of their problem was that they changed it up too much, which is just to say that I don't think I could really have felt confident giving you a starting 11. And I'm not even sure I could have gotten like 9 of the 11 right. Like because there has been so much rotation and he's changed things around so much, he being Thomas Tuchel. Whereas you look at some of the teams that like are having a lot of success this year, like you have Atletico, they're consistent, they do what they do, right? Yep. And yes, there is some change in there, but generally speaking, we know it's going to be 4-4-2, it's going to be aggressive and counterattacking. I mean, and that's maybe the same for Leicester, but for purpose of this argument, it's Atletico doing that. But Monaco the same. Monaco, we basically could have put together that. I would have felt very confident giving you the starting 11 for Monaco. Same thing for Real Madrid as well. So it just seemed, and Juventus too.
Juventus, So most of the teams that went through.
Yeah, so it just feels like with the Champions League, yes, rotation is important in terms of being able to have players fit and healthy and energetic for the Champions League games. But I think within the Champions League, there reaches a point where it's important to kind of play the same 11 and do what you're going to do. And then if you need to change it up, if you need to have different approaches to that, then you can do that. But it felt like Dortmund did the opposite. They didn't have a different approach, but they did have different personnel.
Yes, and that's it, right? You need it the other way around. You need a steady set of personnel, but a couple of different approaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I think we've fixed all of Dortmund's problems. We'll write them down and send them to Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah, I think so. And so, I mean, and just to kind of quickly run through the rest of it, then you have Marco Reus scoring, 3 minutes into the start of the second half, and things seemed like maybe there's a chance. It could be 3-2. We could be going to extra time. And then in the 84th minute to kill the game off completely, I think it was 84th minute. It might have been a little sooner or later. I'm not sure.
81st I've got here.
Thank you. Jermaine comes in. Just puts it home, puts the game out of reach, and as they talked about, sorry, go ahead.
It was a giveaway from Piszczek. He was looking to play the ball at right, kind of desperately, as Dortmund were sort of desperate for goals in those final 10 minutes, and his sort of overly ambitious pass to the right is intercepted, and then Jermaine's just through on a sort of easy, quick counter-attack goal.
Yeah, well done by Lamar to intercept that ball. Plays in Germain, and then I don't know, again, if we have different commentators or not, but my commentators are making the point. Do you know when he started playing for Monaco, Germain?
No.
He started in 2005.
Oh, wow.
At the age of 15, he joined their academy. So he's one of those guys, and there were a bunch of them. I think like 7 of the players who started their last Champions League game, maybe a couple fewer than that, were part of the team that got promoted to Ligue 1. Like they were that Monaco team that got relegated, that fought their way back up. Now here they are in the Champions League. So it's not just sort of like they found their way up and then they spent a bunch of money. They've definitely done that too, don't get me wrong. But it's been interesting to see kind of the success story of Monaco that I think would probably be a little bit more heartwarming if, as we talked about on a couple shows ago, there weren't those stories that maybe Monaco had refused to have the game after the bombing postponed.
It's kind of hard to live them, isn't it, when you know that they sort of refused Dortmund's request in their hour of need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that is what happened. So I'm not too excited for them to be going through, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think if you can put that to the side for a moment, it will be exciting to see them in the next round. Yeah,
I'm trying, Taylor.
So maybe Monaco weren't particularly nice last week, and I feel like maybe Christian Pulisic isn't particularly nice or something, because it felt like at times maybe his teammates didn't like him very much.
I'm not sure if that's his fault or if it's more that Dembele is kind of selfish. Yeah. Because even though Dembele got that assist, he made a lot of selfish decisions in this game. And just because you get one assist doesn't mean that you were making the right choice the whole time.
Yeah, it felt like he was told, go in there and make stuff happen. And that was
he was trying that.
And it also felt like, and we've played with players like this before, where the coach is saying like, hey man, we need a goal. I believe in you for getting it, to get it, right? And then there are certain players who will take that and hear it in such a way that what the coach has said in their mind is, you are the only one who can score, and therefore you have to take every opportunity to try to score. And it felt like that's what he was doing, because there were moments when he had Christian Pulisic out wide, he had other teammates available, and instead he would just try to dribble through and shoot or try to make something happen and get stuck or shoot over, and it just didn't feel like he was helping create a cohesive offense for Borussia Dortmund.
So to get to Pulisic, he didn't get long in this game, right? He got sort of less than 20 minutes on the field, and in the end wasn't able to make much happen, sort of just like the rest of his teammates.
Yeah.
So his first big Champions League adventure ends at the quarterfinals with a kind of disappointing performance, but I also kind of think that maybe Tuchel should have gambled on him and started with Christian Pulisic and not Eric Durm as that right wing back.
Oh, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree after what happened with that first goal, right?
Yeah, and so I think, though, with all that said, and I don't know if you have more you want to talk about with this game, I do want to add that I think we are seeing like a team that is going to go places. Maybe they won't win the Champions League, but I do think this Monaco team, they're setting records. They've obviously have a lot of homegrown players, or a lot of players that have been there for a while, but they also have statistics like they're the first team to score 3 goals in 4 consecutive Champions League knockout matches. So they're not having problems finding the back of the net, and that's against Manchester City, and that's against Borussia Dortmund. Say what you want about City's defense. Borussia Dortmund tend to be a pretty defensive team, or good defensively, that is. So I think this Monaco team are going to be very, very exciting, regardless of whom they draw in the next round.
Well, actually, that's interesting. The 2 teams you just mentioned, Man City and Borussia Dortmund, like I mentioned Guardiola earlier, right? Those are 2 teams that like to possess the ball and send people forward and get lots of people wide and try and create space by getting all up in you, and are vulnerable to the counter-attack. So I do kind of feel like the way Monaco play, they are sort of well matched for Man City and for Dortmund. So if they come up against someone who is not as susceptible to the counter-attack, they may not do as well.
So I'm trying to think who they really don't want then. My gut is to say Atletico, Juventus. But I mean, I really don't think they want anybody.
No, but they have to, right?
Can they get a bye to the final? Is that possible?
Real Madrid or Juventus? Yeah, if they do the draw on Friday and Monaco get a bye, then that's the best possible result for them.
So I've heard some people...
for anyone who's wondering if that's real, that is not real. That's just a very weak joke.
I've heard some people say that they would prefer to see in the next round Monaco get Juventus and Real get Atletico, or vice versa, depending on your perspective, because people don't want another Madrid derby as a final.
That's true.
Is there a combination that you would like to see before we move on to the Juventus-Barca game?
I think you just sold me on that. I think I'd also like to see Real versus Atletico over 2 legs. I think that would be more interesting than seeing them in the final.
That's a very good point. Okay, I'm down.
All right. Shall we move on to Barcelona versus Juventus?
I suppose we should.
If you caught this morning's goal mouth, I quoted Luis Enrique in there as saying that if we get the first goal, the Camp Nou will score the second goal, and then we will find a third goal.
Yeah, well, he didn't have to worry about that, yeah.
Yeah, they got no goals.
Nope.
It was Barcelona 0, Juventus 0. Juventus go through with a 3-goal victory.
Mm-hmm. And you had Neymar crying at the end, and you had Messi bleeding at the end. So it was
did you? I missed both of those.
Yeah, he had I would say it's telling that this is kind of the narrative, or like the big moment of the game, is Messi goes up to try to win a header, and Miralem Pjanic, it really does depend on your perspective. I know the commentator at the time said, like, I don't see anything wrong with that. He's going for the ball. I would say that he more or less keeps his feet and leads into Messi's legs. I would say it's definitely a foul. Right. But essentially Messi gets tabletopped, comes down, basically lands on his face. And so comes up, he's got a cut on his cheek. It's more like a bruise, kind of a little cut. But he's definitely bleeding and definitely looks not pleased with that incident. And then by the end of the game, no one in Barcelona is pleased with the result.
That's a good metaphor for the game then. Right?
Yeah, right? Yeah. Because really... sorry, go ahead, Daryl.
I was going to say the bits that I saw, because I didn't see the whole game, but I went back and watched bits. Mm-hmm. It seems Juventus did the same thing they did last week, the same thing they usually do, which is weirdly to direct traffic inside and then tackle you in the middle, which I was saying, I think I said in our preview 2 weeks ago, that is not going to work against Barcelona. I was totally wrong. They directed traffic inside, and then Khedira and Pjanic and Chiellini and Bonucci would just step and win the ball every time.
Yeah, and that's why I am confident in saying that my prediction. I'm confident in saying what my prediction is. That Juventus are winning the Champions League.
Ooh,
just from, I mean, not just from this game, but this, not just from these 2 games, but from their past few games overall. They haven't allowed a goal in the Champions League in 9 hours of soccer.
Wow.
That's not bad. And then heading into this fixture, I think Barcelona, I had the number in front of me. I think they were averaging 1 goal every 32 minutes in the Champions League. So to score 0 goals in 180 minutes, it's telling us to how well-organized and well-oiled of a machine Juventus are or is, depending on your European or American location.
Hello to George Qureshi, if you're listening. So Juve go through. Anything else we want to say about this game? I don't want to go too deep because we didn't see it, so there's not too much we can say. Right?
I mean,
90 minutes.
I would say I had both these games on at once. I would have probably 85% of my attention was on the Dortmund game, but I was definitely watching anytime kind of big incidents happened, and I would just say that it felt. Maybe it's an oversimplification because Juventus obviously did many things to make it happen, but it also felt a little bit like it was just one of those it's not their nights sort of games. And I would say that because you had Leo Messi missing shots that I would say he finishes on most other occasions. He had the one that the one clear one was when Gigi Buffon spills the ball and it gets played back into Messi.
Yes, I saw this in the highlights.
He hits it over the post from 8 yards out. Now, granted, there's still a couple, like 3 or 4 Juventus players in front of him, so it's not like he had a tap in and missed it. But it's still an opportunity that you would expect Leo Messi to either put on frame or create something out of and not just shank over the bar. He had a few more that just went wide or would get deflected wide at the last second. It just kind of felt like Barcelona had some opportunities very early on, and then they didn't take advantage of them, and they felt that pressure, and they started to get frustrated. And so by the second half, it really just kind of shut down, and there wasn't that much in terms of exciting attacking moments.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Leo Messi in the highlights. I saw a lot of Leo Messi sort of shots from 25 yards out or so, and that's when you know sort of Barcelona are starting to get desperate.
And my final one, in terms of knowing that Barcelona, maybe not desperate in this situation, but sort of like, ooh, this is not, something is wrong, was there's a moment when Sergio Busquets, like basically Juventus have a chance, they shoot the ball, I think it gets blocked and it spills to Busquets, and he receives it about 25 yards from his own goal, takes a touch, takes another touch, turns, takes another touch, and then gets bodied off the ball. And then there's another chance for Juventus. That is not something you see very often, is Sergio Busquets taking a bunch of touches and then losing the ball, leaving his opponent in an attacking position. And so again, it just felt like, whoa, what's happening here? This is not Barcelona. This is a different team. I don't understand.
That's again because, based on what we saw in the first leg and a little I saw of the second leg, Juve may be the best at denying you space in the middle. So if you can deny Sergio Busquets any people to pass to, I think he's kind of lost at that point, right? What's he going to do? Dribble up the field?
Yeah, exactly.
He's no Mendy.
He is not. And so the final telling statistic I have for this one is that Barcelona had 65% of possession. They were dominant on the ball. They had 19 shots. They had 1 shot on target.
Wow.
Yep. One shot on target.
Okay, so your semi-finalists are Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, and Monaco. The draw is Friday. I think it's 12 o'clock Central European time. That's, I think, 7 a.m. Eastern US time. So not long after you get up tomorrow, depending on what time you get up. Sorry, Friday. Not long after Friday. You will know who has who in the Champions League semi-finals.
There we are. Oh, and one quick correction, because now I have my notes in front of me. It's 8 hours that Juventus have gone without conceding a goal in the Champions League.
Oh, that's not even half as impressive.
Yeah, no, I apologize. It starts with the last time they conceded was against Sevilla in the group stage in the 9th minute of a game. Since then, they have not conceded in basically 5 games and then 81 minutes of that remaining Sevilla game. So
How's about that?
Yeah,
I'll tell you that. Today's show is sponsored by Futchi of the Engineered Soccer Rebounders. You and I have played some Futchi in our day, isn't it?
That we have, my friend, that we have.
So it's soccer meets squash. You bounce the ball off the net, it rebounds and lands back in the court. Then your opponent tries. There are more videos than I can count of us playing Futchi on the internet. We'll put a link to the videos in the show notes. You can take a look and let us know what our form is like.
Oh, boy. Do we really want to invite that? I'm not sure I want to invite that.
Well, I think actually our form looks good and looks bad. It looks good in some videos, not so good in others. I'll take the average. That's not so bad.
All right,
I'll take the
That's
average.
fair. That's fair.
For today's show, we asked people about teams rebounding, because it's a Futchi rebounder, in the Champions League next year. We asked 2 questions on Twitter. Mm-hmm. What do Barcelona need to do to bounce back and rebound in next season's Champions League? And what do Borussia Dortmund need to do to bounce back in next season's Champions League? Mm-hmm. Should we start off with the Barcelona rebound answers, Taylor?
Sure. And thank you to everyone who did respond. We got lots and lots of responses. We've curated them down to just a few here. So for Barcelona to start off, from Ravi Khatri, replace Iniesta. I think that's probably important. Well, similarly, Chris Tobin, before we talk about that one, find the next Xavi and Iniesta combination. So it seems like there's a prevailing theory or belief that maybe Iniesta is no longer a player who can start and play consistently for Barcelona.
Yeah, I mean, I see him still looking like a kind of magnificent player, but just not the unstoppable force of old. Yep. Mm-hmm. The question I would have for Ravi and for Chris is, how on earth do you do that? Because those are both sort of I won't say once in a generation. Those are once in a lifetime players.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you, Daryl. And I would say that if anything, I think that's kind of been the problem for Barcelona. There's an article that I read right before we started recording that's basically, it puts some of the blame for what's happened to Barcelona this season on their failed transfer policy, that they've spent I think over 200 million euros on players with this eye towards, we need to replace this player. We're going to bring in this guy. He's going to be the answer at right back. He's going to be the new Xavi. He's going to be the new Iniesta. Yeah, those guys don't just happen. You can't just like magically find somebody who's exactly that same player. So I think trying to plug in players to replicate what other players have done, it's always going to be kind of a fool's errand unless you get very, very lucky.
And the only other way is to have players come through La Masia, right? Yep. So the guy that did come through, Thiago Alcantara.
Yep.
I feel like what happened is Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets were just there a little too long, and these guys that wanted to play didn't quite have a pathway to the first team. That's why Thiago Alcantara was happy to follow Pep Guardiola to Bayern Munich. And I really like I love that guy, right?
Yep.
So watching him play, I feel like he's a guy who could be he's not identical to Xavi and not identical to Iniesta, but he could have been a guy raising the tradition that plugs into central midfield. And they it's almost like those two guys were too good for too long, and so they missed the window on the next generation.
Wait, Daryl, but to be fair, there's no precedent here. So this would be an unprecedented situation in which a big club has a young and very exciting midfielder who doesn't get playing time because there are others ahead of him, who then goes to another club in continental Europe, does really, really, really well, and then gets bought back by that one club for way too much money.
So maybe that could happen with Barcelona?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. One more answer on the what can Barcelona do to rebound next season. Steven Anderson says, swap Messi for Ronaldo.
All right. That's interesting. It's interesting, especially because, number one, it's just a good thought experiment. But I've also seen a lot of people on the media social talking about...
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, they don't. But, try to mix it up. Why not? Basically saying that, Messi is the player, the better player, but Ronaldo is the better player if you're trying to win a game. I don't know if I would agree with that, because I kind of get tired of who's better. Of those because
not doing it, Tyler. I'm not doing it with you.
That's fine, but I wonder if maybe that's what this points to is you need a player who can come in and definitely make a goal happen, even if he hasn't looked that great for the rest of the game.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Do you want to move on?
But also, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think Messi and Ronaldo will be doing. Yeah. They won't be doing swapsies anytime. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine how much grief both of them would get from their former fans?
Quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay, our second Futchi sponsored question was, what do Borussia Dortmund need to do to bounce back in next season's Champions League? Mm-hmm. And the first thing, actually no one gave this answer, but the first thing is they need to qualify for next season's Champions League by pipping Hoffenheim to third place in the Bundesliga. But assuming they do that, what can they do next season, Taylor?
Wait, hold on really quickly, though, because I thought Germany gets 4 spots, right? But you're talking about automatic qualification?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so basically we want them automatically qualifying. We don't want them having to play off against who knows who, and that could go bad. So yeah, I think right now they're in 4th place. You've got Hoffenheim in 3rd. So qualification, probably kind of important. Yeah, otherwise you're in a little bit of trouble. Aside from that, we had Soccer over there mentioned that you could start Pulisic 11 times or start 11 Pulisics.
I dream of a team of Pulisics. We all dream of a team of Pulisics.
I don't know. I think he could have trouble in goal and winning headers.
That might be true.
Mm-hmm.
Chief says, bluntly, not have their bus bombed and then have to play a match a day later.
Yeah.
So, yes, that obviously would have helped. But I still don't see this Dortmund team maybe going too deep into the tournament, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then if you want to go back to the Bundesliga for a second, I mean, it's still a Dortmund team that are struggling to make the Champions League and got crushed by Bayern 2 weeks ago. So I mean, it's definitely still not the Dortmund team that we've seen at the level of Dortmund that we've seen in years past.
Next up, Jack Coffey says, not take 4 to 5 passes to move the ball from one side of the field to the other. Everything they did was telepathed seconds before they did it. I'm not sure if that's like a Freudian slip, telepathed, or if he meant telegraphed, but I like telepathed. It's as if Monaco could see what was coming.
Yep. Matt, who's at Northwood Guitar, says faster holding midfielder, get another quality center half in addition to Omer Toprak, sell Royce for different attacking talent, and hope Götze gets better.
Wow, that is the most thorough prescription of anything that we got, right? From that. Mm-hmm. So a faster holding mid, that's interesting. Like maybe someone can cover a lot of ground. Because I think you say Julian Weigl is a great passer of the ball. Yep. I don't think of him as slow, but he's not running around closing things down. He's more like receiving the ball and moving it around, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, another centre back. Sell Royce is harsh, but okay, I get it. And hope Götze gets better is, fingers crossed for that.
I think that's just that there has been stated interest from a number of different clubs for Royce. He's had trouble staying fit, and maybe there's this idea that you can make some money off of him, invest it in younger talent. But even that then makes people frustrated, because then there's some arguments that like you can't replace Gundogan and Mkhitaryan and Hummels with youngsters and expect to win silverware. Yeah. You'll never win anything with kids, Daryl.
Not sell anyone might be another thing in terms of bouncing back next season.
I was surprised that nobody mentioned that you probably want to keep hold of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. That's probably kind of important.
So Charles's answer was just one. Charles's response was just one name, and it goes along with Matt's idea about another quality centre half. Yep. And that name is John Brooks.
I'm sorry, he's earmarked for Arsenal. I've already made that clear.
I'd be excited if he went to Dortmund, though. That would make Borussia Dortmund must-watch TV for US national team fans.
Ooh, and then they would rival Schalke for the new America team.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be really fun to watch. I also, thinking about it, I think John Brooks would fit in with that Dortmund team because he's good with the ball at his feet, and he's also, I'd say, maybe a better defender than, say, Bender and Ginter and a lot of those guys. Maybe level with Socrates and Bartra. So I think that improves Borussia Dortmund's defense.
All right, fine. He can go there instead of Arsenal.
Yeah,
if that's what has to happen. And the final one comes from TJ Bermesh, who says, rotate players a bit less and put the best 11 on the field. I would agree with that one.
That echoes what we said earlier, right? Yep. About sort of not knowing your best 11.
It does. So, thank you to everyone who responded. Some very good ideas. I'm sure the respective boards of those two clubs are listening. I'm sure things will happen.
Another thing both of these teams could do, if they want to work on their rebounding, they could buy a Futchi rebounder. They do so by going to playfutchi.com. It's spelled futchi.com. If you want to take a look at a rebounder, the link is in the show notes. It takes you directly to the product page, and you can get the biggest discount in the whole world on a Futchi rebounder with the TSS discount, which is TSS 2017. That's the coupon code you put in, the discount code. It will get you $20.17 off of a Futchi rebounder.
Mm-hmm. So thank you to Futchi for sponsoring this show, and thank you as well to everyone who sent in scouting reports, because it's time for the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. Daryl Grove.
Okay, I've got a printout of 5 different scouting reports here. Yep. It is 80% American.
Yep, and that's why, with that in mind, I'm actually going to jump to the second report, so we'll get the non-American out of the way, then we'll stick to the USA. So I'm going to start with...
So this is an America second policy?
Yeah. Well, I think when you've got 4, you save the best for last. Up first is Ed DiHoracia scouting Federico Bernardeschi, the 23-year-old Italian winger for Fiorentina. Ed says, Bernardeschi hasn't gotten much playing time since he injured his ankle in February. Nevertheless, transfer rumors continue to swirl, particularly since he appears to have turned down a new contract, with the latest rumor heavily linking him with a move to Juventus. So we shall see what happens there.
Oh, he could join the your pick for the Champions League winners, 2016-17.
Yeah, apparently Gigi Buffon has been dropping hints, and Gigi Buffon rarely drops anything. So I think it's worth believing.
Okay, up next, the Reverend Joel Tolbert is scouting Chris Goslin, 16-year-old American midfielder for Atlanta United. Reverend Tolbert says Goslin has been in the Atlanta squad, but he's only played in preseason friendlies. So that means what? He's seen the bench in MLS games, but hasn't set foot on the field yet.
Yep.
He's also on their U18 Academy roster alongside Andrew Carlton, and was named to the 20-person US Under-17 roster by coach John Hackworth. Mm-hmm. So that means Chris Goslin will be with the squad as they play in the U17 qualifiers later this month. In fact, as early as this weekend, right?
Yep. Also, and I do enjoy that the Reverend, I'm going to call him the Reverend, did it this way, because if you're under 17, it would mean that you are not 18, which means you are not like legally a man yet, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So then I understand then why he went with a 20-person US U17 team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know whether to say man or boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you know, actually, the under-17 team is officially the US men's national team under-17.
There you go.
Yeah, how about that?
That makes sense.
Yep. Any more scouting reports? I know that there are. I'm looking at them.
Yep. Next one comes from Andy Hollins, scouting Julian Green. We know him
Julian
as
Green.
the 21-year-old. Yeah. You remember him?
I remember Julian Green, yeah.
21-year-old American winger for VfB Stuttgart. I think you might be one of the few who remembers Julian Green at this point. Green is not starting for Stuttgart and has only been getting sporadic minutes since his January move. Stuttgart will likely be back in the Bundesliga next year since they're currently top of Bundesliga 2 with 5 matches to go, but it's not entirely certain if Julian Green will be with that team when they're in the Bundesliga, if they're in the Bundesliga next year.
So this is kind of a surprise. I really expected going down to Bundesliga 2, Julian Green would start consistently for Stuttgart and would maybe be banging some goals in. So this is like a really good scouting report because this is big news, right? Because most people have kind of half forgotten about this and just assumed it's going well. But it's bad news for Julian Green.
It is indeed. And Daryl, I'll let you decide then. We've got 2 more. Do you want to go good news or bad news?
Whichever it is, I'm going Emerson Hyndman.
All right, well, then you got good news.
So Richie Garcia is scouting Emerson Hyndman, the 21-year-old American midfielder for Rangers on loan from Bournemouth and future of the US men's national team. I added that part myself.
You sure did.
Richie says Rangers defeated Partick Thistle 2-0 and, to the relief of Americans all across the globe, Emerson Hyndman played the full 90. And Hyndman was involved in the first goal and got the assist for the second. After the game, his manager, Pedro Cachina, commented, quote, Emerson Hyndman is an interesting player and a quality player that when he arrives on the left side can find some very interesting things, unquote. Yeah. This, as Richie notes, is isn't quite a resounding endorsement. No. It's a lot of use of the word interesting, which can go either way, can't it?
It sure can. Yeah. So actually, I remember this as being good because he was involved in the goals, but in actuality, there's already been some speculation about maybe how happy Caixinha is with Hyndman. Yeah. That quote doesn't really make you feel like his feelings are like, oh, he's the best player in the world. We love him.
Okay, so we won't say it's a good report or a bad report. We'll say it's an interesting report.
There we are. That's never good. Michael Heitman, scouting Junior Flores, the 21-year-old American midfielder for Borussia Dortmund 2, sort of. Uh-huh. Michael says, despite being involved in some winter friendlies, Flores hasn't seen the field for Borussia Dortmund 2 this season, but has been on the bench for 9 whole games. So there's that. As a result, Stephen Goff has reported that Flores will leave Dortmund at the end of the season, with MLS still his most likely destination.
Let's just make it happen, right? This has been rumored for years now. Let's just get it over with and get Junior Flores into Major League Soccer so we can watch him play.
Yeah, I think so. I would be fine with that.
Because as we know, we talked to Brian Sciaretta, who said that basically if you're on Borussia Dortmund 2 for a long time, you just haven't made it, right? U19s is where the real pipeline to the first team is. Yep. Borussia Dortmund 2 is just the sort of, it's almost like the detritus of the guys that didn't make it.
Well, yeah, it's that, or it's where you go if you need to be like physically tougher. Like U19, from what I remember, is like that's where you develop your technical ability. U23 or Borussia Dortmund 2 is where you sort of learn to play against bigger people.
Right, so you just go toughen up a bit. But Flores at 21, when there's a lot of teenagers in the Dortmund first team, it's not happening for him, is it?
And especially when he's not even getting minutes for that Dortmund 2 team. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you to the Reverend Joel Tolbert, to Eddie Horatius, to Andy Hollums, to Richie Garcia, and to Michael Heitman, and to everybody else who is sending us scouting reports.
It means a lot, and it helps us keep up to date with all young players around the world, and especially young Americans around the world, so we can kind of know what's going on with everybody.
One note, I would say we've been getting a lot of longer and longer scouting reports, right? We're getting sort of several scouting reports with several paragraphs. I would say don't work too hard. It's okay. We only want sort of the raw information. So we're happy with just, if you just forward us a Google alert you get, or, you know, a news story, just send us a link, or just a couple bullet points of what your player's been up to. We're equally happy with a short report because then it's easier to read on the show.
I'm going to amend that. I don't know if I would love getting a Google alert because then I have to go and read the entire article. I wouldn't mind just maybe like a 2-sentence summary of the article would be lovely.
Fair enough.
Yes.
If you'd like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, you can do so at totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. It's worth reminding people, because we talk about this every show and maybe we don't put enough emphasis on it. The Total Soccer Show Scouting Network is the reason we can do 5 shows a week of TSS. It's the reason the show is what it is today.
Absolutely. It's what keeps us afloat. It's what pays the bills. It's mostly what keeps the lights on.
It certainly is.
And the air conditioning intermittently running.
Well, that's more of a building issue than a TSS issue.
I suppose that's true.
We can always prop open the window when we need to.
Sure.
But thank you to everybody who subscribed recently, and we hope someone else will consider subscribing as well.
We do.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We know that other podcasts are available, so we always appreciate it when you choose to put ours in your ears.
We do.
If you want more Total Soccer Show, you could try The Goalmouth. That's our other podcast, publishes every morning. It's got all the soccer news delivered in a jovial, friendly fashion.
It's got meatloaf jokes. What more could you want?
It has got meatloaf jokes. And this morning, Star Trek The Next Generation jokes. So if that's your thing, then definitely check out this morning's Goalmouth.
Lovely.
If not, then I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, if not, then you need to reevaluate some things.
And if you subscribe in time for tomorrow morning, Taylor Rockwell will be on Goalmouth duty.
He will. He will indeed. He's not sure how he feels about that right now, but he will be.
All right, Taylor. Well, thanks again. And listeners, thanks again. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow with another Total Soccer Show.
You gotta slice it.